I'm your guide into the night, weaving desires into words just for you. I know you've slipped here to escape, to feel something tender, sultry, and a touch forbidden before we melt into the story. Take a moment to like this little escape. Subscribe if you crave more intimate whispers like these, and share with me. Where are you tuning in from, and what hour does your clock show? Settle in now. Let every muscle unwind. Allow me to spin a tale that might stir your senses and cradle you into a restless, dreamy slumber. Maris Vale, a town the ocean carved out with its teeth, where the wind carried whispers no one dared claim, and the cliffs held secrets older than the people who pretended to own them. Seraphina Voss had lived in louder cities. She had danced in dirtier clubs and kissed men who had no idea how to touch her. She'd been praised and shamed for her art in equal measure, and still nothing ever made her feel the way Maris Vale's gray sky did when it rolled over her with the promise of a storm. She liked storms. They made her feel honest. Her rental car groaned up the hill toward the estate, tires crunching gravel as thunder cracked somewhere out over the sea. Damien Reth's mansion didn't just sit on the cliffs. It loomed as if daring the sea to take it. A fortress of glass, steel, and cold design, like the man himself. Seraphina didn't know what to expect when she answered the commission request 2 weeks ago. The email had no attachments, no terms, just private mural, cliffside residence, payment up front, do not be late. DR, the address followed. And now here she was, 28 years old, soaked in her own sweat and sarcasm, a trunk full of tangled brushes and half-empty paint tubes, and a contract with a man who reportedly never smiled unless someone was bleeding money. She rang the doorbell with a knuckle. The door opened instantly. He wasn't what she expected. Not entirely. Damien Reth stood in the doorway like he'd been sculpted out of salt and stone. 35, tall, sharp-jawed, eyes like the sea in winter, beautiful if you didn't mind frostbite. A black button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows. He didn't wear a tie, and yet he looked like he could choke a man with power alone. Miss Voss. His voice was velvet over a blade. Mr. Reeve. She met his eyes without flinching. He tilted his head slightly, assessing her. Not her clothes, not her posture. Her. You're late. I'm 5 minutes early. He smirked. Then you're 5 minutes into my time. She should have been annoyed. Instead, her stomach flipped. He led her through a corridor of silence. Thick carpets, wide windows, walls adorned with pieces so minimalist they made her itch. Cold colors, empty lines. The man had taste. Expensive. Controlled. Clinical. Until they reached the study, and then everything changed. The room was nothing like the rest of the house. It breathed heat. The walls were dark wood, old, carved. A fireplace took up half the far side, unlit but full of ash. One wall was blank, massive, stretching 15 feet across, its plaster surface unfinished. Her canvas. "This is where you'll work," Damien said, his voice dropping half an octave. "You'll have keys. A guest suite down the hall. I don't like waiting. You start tomorrow morning." She stepped inside. The air smelled like tobacco and leather and secrets. "And what, exactly?" she asked, turning. "Am I painting?" He didn't answer. He stepped in close, not touching, but so close. His eyes swept over her with no shame. Her jeans, her paint-stained tank, her throat. "You paint storms, Miss Voss," he said. "I want to see one, from the inside." Her pulse skipped. "And if I say no?" His smile sharpened. "Then I paid you too much." She stared at the wall. He stared at her. The air crackled, not tension, static. "You undress people with your gaze, Mr. Reth," she said. "You defend yourself with sarcasm, Miss Voss. Only when the muse demands it." He stepped closer. "Are you your own muse?" "No," she whispered, "but I know who is." Their mouths were inches apart. And then he turned. "Your room is the last door on the left. Dinner at 8. Bring nothing but honesty." And he was gone. Later that night, she stood under the rainfall shower, the water scalding her skin, and still she couldn't scrub away the heat of his stare. She'd been looked at before, admired, leered at, critiqued. But Damien had studied her. She dried off and wrapped herself in a towel, still damp, her mind replaying the scene. "You paint storms. I want to see one from the inside." The way he said it, like he meant her. She found the dining room by instinct, not guidance. Damien was already seated. No staff, no music, just a single bottle of wine and 2 plates of something she couldn't name. "You're punctual tonight," he said, not looking up. "You're predictable," she replied, taking the seat opposite him. "Am I?" His gaze lifted. "Strike." Their eyes locked across flickering candlelight, and she suddenly realized what kind of dinner this was. A testing ground. He didn't ask about her background. He didn't compliment her work. He asked questions like, "What's the worst thing you've ever done to someone who loved you? What do you crave that embarrasses you? Do you always pretend control when you want to be taken apart?" She answered some, dodged others, pushed back with her own. "Have you ever hurt someone just to see if they'd crawl back? Does it make you feel powerful to know people flinch when you enter a room? Do you even know how to be wanted without control?" By the time the plates were cleared, neither had touched their food. But both of them were breathing like they'd run a mile. Tomorrow, he said, rising, you start painting. The mural ends when you're done, not before. And if I'm never done? He stepped behind her chair, leaning down. His lips brushed the shell of her ear. Then you'll never leave. And then, just like that, he walked away, leaving her heart pounding like waves against the cliff. The morning air in Maris Vale was salt-laced and heavy. When Seraphina woke, the sound of gulls outside her window was distant, drowned beneath the memory of Damien Reth's voice in her ear. Then you'll never leave. She hadn't dreamt of storms that night. She dreamt of rooms without exits, of warm hands wrapped in silk restraint, of her standing naked, not stripped, but revealed. She needed coffee. The kitchen was spotless, stainless steel everything, but a French press already sat on the counter, steaming. Beside it, a note. You're not here to play house. You paint at 9. Don't keep me waiting. Arrogant bastard. She smirked as she poured herself a cup. The study had changed. When she entered, the air felt denser. The fireplace crackled softly now, throwing shadows across the blank wall. A ladder stood in the center of the room. Her supplies were laid out neatly, far too neatly. He'd been in here. He'd touched her things. She didn't know whether that aroused or enraged her. Probably both. She stripped out of her jacket and tank top, left in a black camisole and paint-splattered jeans, tied her hair up, took a brush between her teeth and climbed the ladder. The moment her hand touched the plaster, she felt watched. "Go higher," a voice drawled. She startled, nearly dropping the brush. Damien was in the doorway, leaning against the frame, watching her. "You're early," she said, breath uneven. "I told you. I don't like waiting." She held her position on the ladder, back arched to reach the top corner. He didn't move, but his eyes devoured her. She saw it, how his gaze traveled the exposed curve of her back, the muscles in her arms as she moved, the waistband of her jeans riding low on her hips. "You paint like you're fighting something," he said. She smirked, not looking back. "Maybe I am. And what happens when it wins?" She turned, brush in hand, cocked brow. "Then I paint from inside it." For the next hour, he said nothing, just watched. Sat in the armchair across from the mural, legs crossed, a glass of something dark in his hand, eyes following every stroke she made. She tried to ignore it. She couldn't. Every time she dipped the brush, she felt his stare. Every time she stretched for a higher line, she heard his breath shift. It was maddening. It was thrilling. At noon, she descended the ladder, muscles sore, chest tight. He handed her a towel. She hadn't even realized she was sweating. "Hydration is important," he said, offering a glass of water like it was a test. She took it, drank slow, deliberate. Their fingers brushed. Heat flared. "You're very comfortable giving orders," she said, "and you like pretending you don't want to follow them." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was ripe. "You can watch," she said, backing toward the wall. "But don't distract me." Damien set down his glass, stood. "I don't distract, I direct." And then he walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft click. She exhaled, then laughed. Quiet, nervous, and dipped the brush again, this time painting the shape of a man in the waves, faceless, but undeniably him. That evening, the study was empty when she returned to clean her brushes. The fire was low, the shadows long. She bent to collect a palette and straightened to find Damien behind her. No sound, no warning. She gasped. "You move like a ghost," she muttered. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You paint like you're exercising one." Her breath caught. His fingers trailed down her jaw. Only for a second, but long enough. "I have a dinner. You'll join me." She blinked. "Since when?" "Since I decided." Her mouth opened, a retort forming. He stepped closer. "You can argue, Seraphina. I welcome it. Just don't pretend you're leaving." She didn't. Dinner was upstairs, in a smaller room lined with books and shadow. One table, two chairs. Lamb, roasted vegetables, red wine older than she was. He pulled out her chair, not like a gentleman, like someone giving permission. "I don't need a leash," she said as she sat. He poured her wine. "Number, you need a cage you can open from the inside." "And you think that's you?" "I think," he said slowly, "that you've been begging to be unraveled. You just didn't know who deserved the thread." Her thighs clenched beneath the table. The wine burned in her throat. They ate in near silence, except for his questions. "What do you look like when you're falling apart? Have you ever let anyone see you make a mess? Do you want to be ruined, or do you want to be understood?" She didn't answer most of them, but her eyes did. After dinner, he walked her to her door, stopped just short. No good night, no kiss, just leave your door unlocked tomorrow. And then he left. She didn't sleep. She lay on top of the covers, body hot, skin tight, her fingers twitching for paint or him. Her door stayed locked, but only because she wanted him to want to break it down. The next morning, she didn't lock the door. She told herself it was a test, a challenge. He wouldn't take the invitation. He'd wait, push, stalk her with silence like he always did. But when she emerged from the shower, damp towel clinging to her skin, she saw the evidence. Her sketchbook had been moved. Just an inch, just enough. He had come in, seen her things, tasted her without touching. Seraphina's nipples tightened in the cool air, and she wasn't sure if it was shame or want that burned hotter. In the study, she painted violently. The sea she'd started days ago had grown teeth, black waves crashing, snarling like they wanted to devour the mansion from the inside. Every line felt like a scream she couldn't voice. And when Damien entered, hours later, she didn't stop, didn't turn. She just said, "What do you see?" He stepped behind her, close. His breath brushed the back of her neck. "I see a woman asking to be claimed." Her hand faltered, only slightly, but he caught it. His fingers wrapped over hers on the brush, steadying, guiding. "You hide chaos in beauty, Seraphina," he murmured, "but I see both." She turned. The brush dropped from her hand. They stood chest to chest. Her tank top damp with sweat, paint smudged along her collarbone. His eyes dropped there. He reached out, slow, giving her every chance to pull back. She didn't. His thumb smeared the blue-gray paint down to her sternum. "I've wanted to mark you," he said, voice low, "since the moment you walked in." Her breath shuddered. "That's not very professional, Mr. Rath." He smirked. "I'm not paying you for professionalism." She leaned in. "So what are you paying for?" His hand slid to her waist. "I want to see what happens when someone finally tells you to stop pretending you're in control." And then he kissed her, hard, possessive, like the air between them had been a lie, and this was the first truth either of them had dared taste. She gasped. He took it as invitation. His tongue slid against hers, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressing into the small of her back. When she moaned, he pulled back just enough to speak against her lips. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. She reached up and yanked him back in. He pushed her against the mural wall, the wet paint smearing across her back, and she didn't care. His thigh pressed between hers. She rolled her hips, once, just enough to tease. He growled, actually growled. "You're playing with fire." "Good," she whispered. "Maybe it'll burn the mask off." His hand slid up her side, under the hem of her shirt. Skin to skin, heat to heat, and then he stopped, pulled back, breathing hard. "I'm not done building the want yet," he said. "You think you can control it?" "I know I can." She was trembling. "You're not scared?" "I'm not sure what I am when I'm with you," she confessed. He stepped forward again, this time slower. His fingers brushed her lips. "You're mine when I say so." She bit his finger, lightly, but hard enough, and walked away. That night, she left her door wide open. He didn't come in, but in the morning, she found a note tucked inside her bra drawer. "Don't tempt a man like me if you're not ready to beg." She didn't work the next morning. She waited. At her bedroom window, wrapped in her robe, watching the sea bash itself against the cliffs like it wanted to climb and drag everything under. Seraphina knew the feeling. She hadn't painted since their kiss, not because she couldn't, because if she did, she'd pour him into every line, and she wasn't sure if she could handle the truth that would come out of her hands. The knock came at dusk. 3 soft taps, not demanding, not asking, inviting. She opened the door. He stood there in black, as always, tailored shirt, open collar, forearms bare. The only softness about him was the warmth in his eyes. But it wasn't kindness. It was hunger, a hunger with patience. "Are you going to invite me in?" he asked. She stepped aside, without a word. The room was lit only by a single lamp, casting gold across the walls and shadows against the floor. He didn't sit. He didn't speak. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, watching her. "What are you waiting for?" she asked, voice low. "You. For what?" "To decide if you want to be seen," he said, "or exposed." Her heart skipped. She stepped forward, letting the robe fall open just enough for him to see the black lace beneath. I think you already know the answer. He crossed the room slowly, like a storm dragging itself across the sea. Inevitable, deliberate. His fingers grazed her wrist. Her pulse leapt. You tempt me like you want to be punished. She tilted her chin. Maybe I do. He pulled the robe from her shoulders. It slipped to the floor with a whisper. His hand followed the curve of her collarbone, slow enough to drive her mad. His mouth hovered near hers, not touching. I've thought about this, he murmured, about how you'd taste. Then stop thinking, she whispered. Start taking. The kiss was fire and command. His hand curled around her throat, not to choke, just to own. He pushed her backward, step by step, until she hit the wall. You disobeyed me, he breathed. She grinned. I left the door open. You locked it the night before. Maybe I wanted to be chased. His mouth dragged down her throat. You want to be claimed. She didn't deny it. He kissed her again, harder this time, devouring, pulling breath and heat from her until she moaned into him. Her legs parted on instinct. He caught her hips in his hands and lifted her onto the dresser behind her, making the wood creak. Look at you, he whispered. A storm pretending to be calm. His hands were everywhere, skimming lace, teasing edges, tracing every place she wanted him without giving in. You like being told what to do, he said. I like choosing who tells me. His hand tightened on her thigh. You've chosen then. Yes. Then prove it. She did, not with words, but with submission. She let him guide her down, knees brushing floorboards, lips parting without protest. His voice shook when he spoke again. You have no idea what you're doing to me. She looked up at him through her lashes. I think I do. Later, when the room had cooled and the silence settled like a blanket, they lay together on her bed, limbs tangled, breath steadying. He traced patterns on her shoulder with one finger. You're not mine yet, he said softly, but you're getting there. She smiled against his chest. Good. The invitation arrived on ivory cardstock, slipped beneath her studio door while she painted. Gilded ink, heavy paper, no note, just a single line. You'll wear red. I'll handle the rest. 8 p.m. tonight. Seraphina ran her fingers along the edge, a command disguised as an invitation. Typical Damien. She found the gown hanging in her closet hours later. Blood red silk, off-shoulder, backless, clinging like it already knew her secrets. Custom tailored, no tag, no zipper, just desire-made fabric. It fit like a promise, and it told the truth. She belonged to someone tonight. When Damien saw her at the top of the stairs, something in his eyes shifted. It wasn't just lust. It was pride, possession. Like he'd carved her from chaos and wrapped her in fire to show the world what he'd created. He held out his arm. She took it, and the mansion doors opened to a night that would unravel them both. The gala was opulence, painted in shadow. Chandeliers the size of cars, waiters in black, champagne that smelled like old money and control. Every guest was someone, and every someone stared at her. Whispers followed them like perfume. Is that the muralist? She's the new one. He never brings dates. Damien leaned close. Smile, he murmured. Let them see what I've claimed. You're enjoying this, she said under her breath. I enjoy owning what others envy. She didn't smile, but her fingers curled tighter around his arm. They danced once, a waltz, slow and coiled like the storm outside, pressing against the glass. He led without apology, held her just a little too tight, spoke only in low phrases meant just for her. You wore the dress well. It wore me. Not as well as I intend to. Her breath caught. She stepped closer, mouth near his ear. You're pushing. I always do. After the dance, he led her through the gallery, away from the crowd. His hand never left her waist. You haven't asked what this gala is for, he said. I assume it's not just to show me off. He stopped at a long window, the sea roaring beyond it. It's to remind them I'm still the man they owe their silence to. And what am I? He turned to face her. His voice dropped an octave. Mine. The moment hung between them. Thick, unyielding. She hated how much she liked it. Later, in the powder room, a woman in silver cornered her. Tall, polished, cruel-eyed. Don't get comfortable, she hissed. We all start out special to him. Seraphina didn't flinch. She just smiled. And yet, here I am in his arms. The woman scoffed. Until he gets bored or breaks you. Seraphina leaned in. Then I'll enjoy the game until I bleed. She returned to Damien's side with the calm of a flame that knew it could burn down everything. He saw it, felt it, and pulled her tighter. They didn't leave early. Damien made her stay through every toast, every round of applause, every stare. Let her soak in the weight of his world, and when they finally returned upstairs, his silence said more than any word could. He led her into his private study, locked the door behind them, and kissed her like possession wasn't enough anymore. The kiss turned to touch. His hand slid up her thighs, beneath the slit of her gown. He didn't rush, didn't grope. He dismantled, unwrapped her with reverence and calculation. "You looked untouchable tonight," he said, pulling her against the window. She shivered from the cold glass. "And now," she breathed, "now you look like mine." He pressed his mouth to her neck, marking her in ways the crowd never could. She moaned, quiet, contained, knowing full well the windows overlooked the garden. "Let them watch," he whispered. But again he stopped short. Always just short. Always one breath away from everything. "I want you to ache for it," he growled. "I already do." "Not enough." He turned her to face the glass, wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, whispered against her ear, "Next time, you'll ask me to break you, and you'll mean it." The storm came in just after midnight, not a soft one, not the kind that whispered at the windows and tiptoed over rooftops. No, this one roared, shook the cliffs, and rattled the bones of the mansion like it meant to drag everything to the bottom of the sea. Seraphina didn't sleep. She stood at the balcony doors in a silk robe, watching lightning flash over the ocean, thunder blooming in her chest like something alive. She felt too much, too full, too close to coming undone. Behind her, the door creaked open. She didn't turn. She knew it was him. His presence filled the space like gravity. Heavy, irresistible. He didn't speak, didn't ask, just stepped behind her, close enough for heat to lick her skin. "Are you afraid of storms?" he asked, voice rough from silence. "No," she said, "I am one." The tension had been growing too long. They both knew it. Weeks of watching, circling, teasing each other into madness. Now it cracked, like the sky outside. His hands came around her waist. Not tentative, not polite, claiming. She leaned into him, felt his breath on her neck, felt his fingers slowly, deliberately untie the sash of her robe. The silk slid open, slid off. Cool air kissed her bare skin, then his palms. He didn't rush. He worshipped. Her shoulders, her spine, the dip of her waist, the curve of her hips. "You're shaking," he murmured. "You make me feel like I'm about to fall apart." "You're supposed to." He turned her to face him, looked at her like art, like he meant to memorize every detail before he destroyed it. "You're the most dangerous thing I've ever wanted," he said. "Then take me like I'm already broken." The kiss was a collision, hands tangled in hair, mouths parted in moans, her legs wrapped around his hips before he even lifted her. He carried her through the stormlight to the bed, laid her down like she was the mural, and he was about to paint his name into every inch of her. And he did, with hands, with teeth, with every growled command whispered against her throat. "Hold still. Look at me. Say you're mine." She did. Every time, each time louder than the last. The world outside raged, but inside her, calm. Because finally, she had surrendered. Not in weakness, but in choice. Later, when sweat cooled and silence returned, they lay tangled in the sheets. He stroked her hair like she was still breakable, but she wasn't. Not anymore. "You're not leaving," he said softly. "No," she whispered. "I'm just starting."